All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 378th meeting of the BRTB. This meeting is being recorded. If anyone online experiences any difficulties, please send a message in the chat box, and I am going to take chair's prerogative for 1 minute and present Mike with something special. Howard County has a new flag.
Oh.
And so I wanted to officially present it to you, not only in appreciation for all of your efforts, but just to thank everyone here for all the work that they did.
All right, thank you very much. We will get some shots.
No, upside down. On the way.
Here we go.
There you go.
As long as it doesn't say the best place for all, we're good.
That's
Beautiful.
So you just switched that count, did it take council action?
Just council action.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Get
you
this on right
very
away.
much.
I don't want mine to be the same color as Pittsburgh.
So we all have a change on the agenda, and we'll first welcome our acting Secretary Samantha Biddle to brief the BRTB on the draft FY 2026 to 2031 CTP. Welcome, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the board, for your indulgence with the change in schedule this morning. Wearing a couple hats these days, so we'll need to depart shortly after the presentation, but do want to spend as much time as possible with this group. So good morning, everyone. For the record, Samantha Biddle, Acting Secretary of the Maryland Department of Transportation, and thank you so much for having me here this morning to provide an overview of our draft 6-year consolidated transportation program, more commonly known as the CTP. Going to do my best to keep my remarks concise to allow any time for questions or discussion. And I do want to thank those of you who have had the chance to receive a version of this presentation already. The department has had the great honor and privilege to visit with a number of jurisdictions and bodies so far this fall, including the BRTC, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Arundel County just earlier this week, Queen Anne's and Howard. And then we'll be visiting with Carroll next Thursday and wrapping up in Hartford County on November 5th. So lots going on at the department. To dive into some of the priorities of the administration, our draft CTP does utilize every dollar to make strategic investments in the Moore-Miller administration's transportation priorities. These priorities are enhancing safety, maintaining our system so it's in a state of good working order, and driving economic growth across the state. This draft CTP is an exciting follow-up to a very productive legislative session this past year, and I want to, of course, thank our General Assembly partners, including for Senate President first, and thank you so much for your leadership and support. Through your support and that of our governor, the MDOT was able to secure approximately $400 million in additional transportation revenue every year. With these additional dollars, the department is stretching this funding by combining it and matching it with federal resources and bonding options to turn that $400 million into an almost $700 million in additional transportation funding. Without these resources, MDOT would have seen sustained and deepened cuts to transportation, and thankfully that is not necessary. Instead, I'm happy to share our draft program includes many investments across the Baltimore region. To get into the details of the document, the balanced 6-year budget is approximately $21.5 billion, which is a modest increase of about $300 million over our final CTP issued last January. These additional dollars are being used to take significant action to maintain our system, keep it in working order, to ensure that millions of Marylanders can get to where they need to safely and reliably. To highlight a few of these transformational investments, we are getting transit in the Baltimore region back on track, most notably through a $1.4 billion program to modernize our light rail system. This will effectively build an all-new light rail system with new ADA compliant vehicles and upgrade stations, systems, and maintenance facilities. This is the first significant investment in the light rail system in 30 years. On the heavy rail side, our new Metro subway cars are undergoing final system integration testing, and MTA is looking forward to having the first car in service by the end of the year. Yeah, take a hooray. The new cars will provide riders with a smoother, more comfortable, and more reliable trip while enhancing overall efficiency of our transit system. We're also advancing important rail projects in Amtrak's program along the Northeast Corridor, including, of course, the new Frederick Douglass Tunnel and bridge improvement programs over the Susquehanna, Bush, and Gunpowder Falls rivers. These projects benefit MARC and Amtrak customers by increasing frequency and reliability while also reducing trip times. The department is serious about safety, and that's reflected as well in this draft CTP. The program includes more than $537 million in pedestrian and bicycle projects, making the largest investment ever for MDOT in these areas. And of this funding, more than $240 million is dedicated to construction activities. The dollars include full funding for the design and construction to advance safety projects on some of the highest incident corridors along state highways with our pedestrian safety action plans and complete streets initiatives. There are 5 pedestrian safety action plan projects in the work across the Baltimore region alone. Through these efforts, we continue to push forward to expedite progress and sharply bend the curve on roadway fatalities and serious injuries across Maryland, leading the way to deliver bold policy changes and those projects needed to drive these critical safety outcomes. So I encourage all of you here today. So many of you already have local strategic highway safety plans. The work of bringing those plans in alignment with the state plan just really allows us as a force multiplier and getting so much more done together. A few other highlights from our draft CTP include advancing transit-oriented development, including at State Center in Baltimore and all throughout the Mark Penn line. So thank you all for the support in those efforts. We're also in the final phases of the AAB connector and baggage handling project at BWI Marshall Thurgood Airport, completing the Howard Street Tunnel project, which will grow the Port of Baltimore and create thousands of jobs, and expeditiously advancing the rebuild of the Francis Scott Key Bridge to make our region whole again. Of course, we are also providing millions of dollars in grants to our local partners and do want to highlight that the draft CTP does keep highway user revenue funding at the current level through fiscal year 2027. In closing, I just want to thank every member of the board and your teams for continuing to reach out to work together. Partnership means a lot to me and all members of our modes. While I recognize there will always be unfunded needs, I believe this draft CTP and the feedback we've received so far on our fall tour will help us to better serve the state. The conversations are a great benefit, allow us to deliver our shared goals of enhancing connections and uplifting communities. So I look forward to the continued work together and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Any brief questions or comments? Secretary Biddle? Very thorough and thoughtful presentation. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
All right, today the board will consider 3 action items with a single vote. Mr. Lang, please present on all 3 items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, the BRTB is being asked to consider Resolution 26-9 to amend the Transportation Improvement Program for 2 existing Maryland Transit Administration projects to add funding for 2 different projects. Today, we also have in the audience Albert Engel, who will be able to answer any detailed questions about these 2 amendments. First is the bus and paratransit vehicle overhaul and replacement project, and the next is the zero emission infrastructure and rolling stock project. First one with bus and paratransit. Again, this is to look at procuring new buses and support the fleet capacity requirements, including replacing aging equipment. This includes not only routine and replacement of buses that are past their useful life, but then also bus components, and then also looking at purchasing paratransit vehicles under MTA's mobility program. So what this does is it adds about $40 million in congestion mitigation air quality funding and about $8.5 million in state matching funding and about $2 million in other FTA funding. Again, this project was previously programmed in fiscal year 2025. We're actually moving this to fiscal year 2026. So the total estimated cost of the project has been updated from $70 million to $120 million over the 6-year period of the project. Next, we have the zero emission infrastructure and rolling stock project. This is again to update and modernize the MTA fleet for zero emission buses. It not only includes the purchase of battery electric buses and hybrid electric buses, but then also the transition of installation of charging infrastructure. So this amendment adds about $22 million in carbon reduction funding in 26 and another 15 or $14.5 million also for construction. The total estimated cost for this project is about $168 million. So again, there's a fairly large investment trying to do infrastructure changes for zero emission infrastructure. Now we're going to quickly move on to resolution 26-10. Again, the board is being asked to consider this resolution for some transportation improvement program updates and amendments from the State Highway Administration. Here are the contacts of the two regional planners here at State Highway Administration. We have 3 projects in Anne Arundel County, which we are happy to see starting to move forward. We have Maryland 2, Maryland 3, and I-97. I'll quickly go through these individual amendments. On Maryland 2, from US 50 to Arnold Road, this project improves safety, accessibility, and operations along northbound Maryland 2. It provides continuous 3rd lane and sidewalk. Again, on North Maryland 2 from Chautauqua to Arnold Road, and then provides sidewalk along Arnold Road from the B&A Trail to Maryland 2. This adds about $5 million in design, right-of-way, and utility funding. And again, we have an updated cost estimate, so the total project cost goes from about $8.7 million up to about $20.6 million once construction is fully included. Moving on to Maryland 3, this is from Maryland 32 I-97 to Watchapel Road and Rydell Road. It improves safety, accessibility, and operations on Maryland 3 with a 3rd continuous lane in each direction. It also provides a shared use path along Maryland 3 from 175 to Watchapel. It does make that connection to the South Shore Trail. And then also providing sidewalks around the intersection in Maryland 3 and Maryland 175. This amendment again adds about $8.5–9 million of both design, right-of-way, and utility funding. And with the updated construction cost estimate, the total project cost goes from about $26.7 million to about $43.8 million. Finally, I-97 from US 50 to Maryland 32. Again, this project improves safety, operations, and mobility along the heavily traveled I-97 corridor project by widening I-97 to 6 lanes with some ramp modifications on US 50 and 301 interchange. This project includes both design, right-of-way, utility, and construction funding. Again, with the total project cost increasing from $104.5 million to about $113 million. We finally have a proclamation from the BRTB, and I'm going to ask Eileen Singleton to step up to the podium and go through the proclamation, and then we will consider all 3 of these resolutions. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for considering this proclamation recognizing Crash Responder Safety Week. Back in 2016, the Federal Highway Administration started Crash Responder Safety Week to elevate responder safety and focus on the goal of the common goal for responders as well as travelers of the responsibility for safe, quick roadway clearance. Nationwide, at least 46 responders were struck and killed in 2024, and so far this year, at least 25 responders. And I want to comment, every time I go in to try and tweak this presentation, it seemed like I saw that there was another responder. There's someone that tracks these. So this is a critical issue. So this year, the theme is safety starts with you. Slow down and move over. So just another, so quick to let you know that in Maryland, the State Highway Administration has a Bankers Safety Responder Day. They did this last year, and it's at the Hanover Complex. They had good turnout, and they're doing this again to try and inform folks in the public about the importance of watching out for responders in the roads. We know in Maryland how important that is. That's made clear the last few years. So I want to thank you for your support of the proclamation, and I think they've seen it, right? So I don't have to go through. So thank you very much.
With that, Mr. Chair, we ask the board now to consider resolutions 26-9, 26-10, and the adoption of a proclamation for crash responders safety.
Thanks so much. Entertaining a motion.
So.
Right. Thanks, Scott. Moved, it's been seconded. Yep. Is there any discussion?
I just want to thank my colleagues because there are 3 Anne Arundel County projects here. First, want to note that the reason they are there is because we raised our income tax 0.1% to fund permanent public improvements. And so therefore, we're putting money on the table. So if y'all want projects, you have to pay for part of it. But the other thing is that I know our Senate president is going to be thrilled, but he went off.
Italy.
I had to leave, okay. That his members can.
You said he thought you might be saying something.
We'll be able to get to Annapolis more quickly and be on time for meetings on 97. And even our mayor has complained about Route 2 and Route 3. So thank you for the support, the regional support for that.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, we are checking the sign-up sheet, and we do have Eric Norton from CMTA who has signed up to speak. Eric?
Thanks so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Norton. I'm the Director of Policy and Programs with the Central Maryland Transportation Alliance. We do transportation advocacy in Greater Baltimore, trying to provide better access and opportunity for people and businesses in the Greater Baltimore region. And going to be a little bit of a skunk at the garden party. I know County Executive Pittman, you're very excited about your 3 projects. But I want to just mention to you this morning that I know you and Anne Arundel County have been at the forefront of the fight against climate change. You've been in court in the past couple of weeks, which is why I wanted to draw your attention to what is essentially a large fossil fuel facility that is now planned for the county. The I-97 project in particular would release up to 1 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent through the year 2050. This is the same amount of CO2 released from burning over 2 million barrels of oil. Besides climate impacts, it will also increase runoff into the Chesapeake Bay and local waterways. And the impacts go beyond just the environment. It will also impact people's lives. It will lead to more deaths and injuries because it will lead to more driving. Less direct, but still harmful for people. It will contribute to social isolation and sedentary lifestyles. The kicker of this project is that it's also going to fail. All evidence from the last 50+ years have come to the conclusion that the promise of congestion relief through adding general purpose highway lanes is a mirage. Maybe you'll get a few years of free-flowing traffic, but that evaporates in 2 to 5 years. The lanes fill back up, and the end result is actually more driving, more congestion, more car dependence. This has been proven time and time again. You would get a better transportation result, and you would do less damage to the environment if you piled the $100 million of cash in front of you and lit it on fire. We're headed in the wrong direction. We need to change our priorities as a region, or we're going to keep making things worse. Thank you for your time this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and Board, we are checking the chat box to see if there is anyone requesting to speak online.
Thank you.
Currently, there is no one else requesting to speak online. Now ask the board to consider these 2 resolutions and the proclamation for crash responders safety.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes carried. Actions all have passed, and now I think we have a presentation from Maryland's Sustainable Growth Policy and Planning Department. Welcome, Madam Secretary.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Always so
Thanks
good
for
to see
being
you.
here. And thanks for allowing me a few moments to share with you what we're up to. And actually, the comments earlier and what we're looking at in terms of transportation couldn't be more appropriate for how we're trying to really transform growth in Maryland and think about it in a very holistic way. So what I'd want to share with you today is where we are moving from what has been traditionally known in Maryland for over 20 years, 25, a smart growth policy to one of a sustainable, more integrated growth policy of sustainable growth. I just hit my arrow. Okay. First of all, for anyone that is not familiar with Maryland Department of Planning, We actually have three core service areas: planning services, data and analysis, and Maryland Historic Trust. Interestingly, our planning services group is the smallest group in the entire agency. Just want to point that out because a lot of planning does occur at the local level. We're here to support that, but to also try to lead as a state. Other areas more recently, which I will also call attention to, is the governor's declaration and the EO around the creation of a coordinated permitting review council to try to move permitting forward at the state level in a more coordinated way. Projects that basically, whether it be an SHA or environmental or a variety of permits, we're working for a more integrated approach to that through a pilot program this year. So just a quick preview there. As I mentioned earlier, smart growth is really how we've all framed growth since, way back when, 92. And that has been focused on where we develop and trying to, with a major goal of preserving and protecting and we've been very successful in that. But in doing that, and in not taking a more holistic approach to how we grow and develop in the areas that we should be developing, I think has been a missed opportunity that we now need to pick up on. So where we're moving and some of the policy, we've already had 2 successful legislative sessions. We're going into another one, is really transformative to not only catch up with other places around the country, but to get back into more of a leadership position again. And that is with our sustainable growth policy. And that will be in equitable consideration of both economic, social, and environmental implications to create thriving communities, because that's what it's about. How do we create places that people want to live in? So that's the goal. We did just sign, thank you to the Senate President is not here, but the governor and everyone else involved. We signed what is part 2 of a 4-part strategy to move us towards sustainable growth. We redefined essentially what were visions in the code to 4 or 8 planning principles that I'm going to walk you through. I also want to point out that this is not just about land use and planning. It's actually also in the state finance and procurement section of the code also. So it does affect how we make decision on the funding of projects. One of the great examples is, for instance, in order for projects to be funded that are outside of priority funding areas, they must receive an exception. Projects like the ones that were just approved, the one in particular 97 will be outside the PFA area and will require an exception. Those are reviewed by the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet. So we also get very much involved with, like I said, finance decisions in addition to just traditional land use code, just to kind of acquaint everyone with that. What we've done in doing that is to create these 8 planning principles, and I'm just going to give you a preview. You can go to our website and find out everything more, but I think it's really important because it's a big shift in how we think about growth and development in the state of Maryland and the ultimate goal. And it's one that essentially says these 8 areas all need to be interconnected and considered, not just siloed considerations around each of these different components, but how do they engage and interact? And we do a lot of that through the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet and the 15 agencies that are part of that are coordinating all of their work and efforts. Each of the 8 principles has an intent statement that you'll see at the top of each of these slides. That intent statement is in code now. It has been embedded with the recent approval, and we are now going to be moving forward with taking it to the next level of aligning it with comprehensive planning and trying to simplify actually what's in the code now to allow for more adaptability at the local level that can change with the fast changing market conditions around us. The items that you see down the right of each side are basically organizing metrics around 3 really critical themes for our state, which is not only everything we should be doing should improve human well-being. How would we measure that? How can we continue to mitigate climate change? And how can we at the same time grow economic opportunity? So we have worked across the agencies to develop a set of metrics, most of which already exist, but they existed in a silo within each of the agencies, and we're combining them now to have a common set of metrics about how we measure sustainable growth beyond what was the former method of just how much development occurs within PFA versus outside PFA areas. So you'll see with land, for instance, we are looking at optimizing not only population centers and where we're developing. So yes, that could include density in some areas where how do we ensure that the land that we should be developing on is being used in the most optimal way possible. And these are a few metrics that you can see down the right-hand side that we would be measuring that around. Transportation, obviously very relevant to this group. We're basically really emphasizing networks and that those networks should create energy efficient, affordable, and reliable access to jobs, housing, and services. So what are we doing to ensure that all aspects of our transportation systems are interconnected and networked? Because that's really what we're trying to do through those networks is to either, get home, get to a job, get to services, get to recreational opportunities, and how do they all interconnect? The three metrics that have been chosen, and keep in mind, this has been a collaborative effort across actually not only the 15 agencies on the sub-cabinet, but we've actually pulled in other agencies that were involved in the development of these metrics also. And these are the ones that have been identified specific to transportation, but we will be using these holistically to measure growth across the state. Housing, of course, hot topic, clearly huge issue for the state of Maryland and really the entire country right now. And what we're influencing through this, and as an intent statement, is mixed quality housing types and affordability to accommodate all. We want to, as we've focused on, and I'm on the Baltimore Vacant Council group that around homelessness and vacancies, and we're basically looking at, well, how does that work that we're doing relate to all of Maryland through these metrics that we can use in housing. Keep in mind that the metrics are related to what we can do within land use and planning and zoning policy, which is kind of fundamental, people forget, but that's the groundwork by which we try to accomplish many of the types of projects that we're doing throughout the state. Fourth one is economy. Obviously, the governor has made it very loud and clear that we need to grow our economy. So the question becomes, how do we do that and do it in balance with ensuring that all people come along with us in that process and that we are balancing our environmental and all of our other goals that we need to accomplish. And so these are the three metrics here, and really just wanted to expose you to how within the realm of sustainable growth policy, we can influence that. Equity is a new principle. It is one that what I have seen and experienced in the planning world, I've been a practicing planner for over 40 years now, is that a lot of people say we held a meeting and people showed up. That doesn't really tell us a whole lot anymore of, was it the same people with the same loud voice, or did we actually use new methods and tools that are available to us to ensure that all sectors of the population are heard, and that particularly we've gone out of our way to ensure that the needs of underserved populations are prioritized. This has been a tough one to put metrics around, and some of our metrics aren't all quantitative. Some will be more qualitative, and some of these, particularly in the equity domain, will be more qualitative, but at the same time, we can use spatial analysis and other tools and our Just Communities program that MDE has put forth also as part of it. We've tried to pick up on anything that's out there, but look at it holistically, as I mentioned. Resiliency, obviously, this is not just caused by nature, but also human caused resiliency. It's resiliency to federal shutdowns, it's resiliency to COVID, and yes, flooding and a whole variety of other issues. But how we can continue to integrate that into comprehensive planning processes and not have just one more plan that sits on a shelf, but it's actually one integrated approach to how we think about planning, particularly at the local and at the state level. Place is an interesting one. Another one that if we really want to create thriving communities and look at how communities are functioning, we can't leave this behind. We have to really think about, are we creating places that people love and want to be in, and what makes that so? Often it's a special building, it's a town square, it's a park, but how are we upholding and ensuring that that's still part of why people want to be here and be part of that? And so we've tried to come up with ways to measure that so that we can ensure we are continuing to encourage this type of approach to how we grow. And these are the measures that that particular team came up with. Finally, and of course, ecology. ecology and how we think about it is not only just protecting anymore, but it's what are we doing to restore? We have some very sensitive ecological systems, and those are systems. All we're saying is we should be thinking about growing the same way we've talked about ecological systems for centuries, is that it's a system. And how these all interconnect. When you influence one, you influence another. Trying to get folks to think less siloed and more interconnected the way ecology has done for forever, really. So we want to include that in terms of not only the protection and but also restoring. And these are some of the metrics we put together for that. So those are the 8 principles. You'll be hearing more about them. We will be starting to measure them holistically going forward and getting beyond what has just been the smart growth metric that's been used in the past. And we're continuing on this path to really be transformative and to be a leader again in Maryland of how we think about growth and development in the state, and in the end, create thriving communities. We are developing online tools to go with this to help not only support local communities, but also our sister agencies and any of the work we do in terms of financing decisions. Been in touch with DBM, for instance, in terms of how this can help with capital projects and help in decision-making. Because while it won't be the primary decision maker, it's a factor. I was very involved with the LEED building rating system when it was first developed many years ago by the US Green Building Council. And that became a global approach to really measuring, and it's been used. I see the building that we're even in is LEED certified. I kind of see this in a similar way, that if someone comes forward with a project and says of these 24 metrics and points, and they're scoring 20 of those, and it looks really strong, and boy, they've even gone over the board on some of these. That's a project we ought to really be looking at. And if we have to make decisions and really and how many funding decisions we have to make, that's going to be a factor. And by working with all the other agencies, it allows us to all be moving forward in the same direction. That's not all fully in place yet. We're getting there. The implementation guide will help with that. The online tools, which we're launching before the end of this year, will help with that. But it is about also measuring progress, but having the right metrics to be measuring with. And then finally, in terms of not only from a government standpoint of local and state, we have created the Sustainable Growth Forum. Some of you may be familiar with the commission that existed some time ago that was sunset. We're trying to create this in a more informal way, but to allow an opportunity, at least quarterly, to come together with others around the state that we encourage to work with us, to hear their comments. And we've been doing roundtables at the local level also, with the objectives of just having the tent get bigger in terms of how we all talk and think about. Everybody in Maryland knows what smart growth is. The goal is just everyone to understand and talk about, well, what's sustainable growth? And how do we define it, and defining it in a common way? And this is the way to get involved with that. Our next meeting will be in January. We also have our Sustainable Growth Subcabinet Public Forum that will be in December. Bihoy back here, I want to introduce, can help you find those places and those dates if you need to after I leave. And that's it. So hopefully that gave you some information you may or may not have already been aware of, but know how we can interact from any standpoint. Any questions?
Thank you, Secretary Flora, for the insightful, informative, and efficient presentation. Any questions for the Secretary? Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right, next is our public participation opportunity, where we offer the public an opportunity to speak with the board. If there is anyone who wishes to address the board, please indicate that in the chat box. Todd, do we have any friends who are interested yet?
See, I'm checking the chat box initially. Currently, there is no one. I'm looking to the audience. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the board? There's no one currently requesting to speak to the board, Mr. Chair. We can move to the closing.
Well, thank you so much. Is there any other business to come before the BRTB? Hearing none. Entertaining a motion to adjourn. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're adjourned. Thank you all very much. Oh, the next meeting is Tuesday, November 18th, and it will be virtual.